Meghan Markle of the royal family's sister Samantha Markle, now my co-host bringing you ORI SPADO. Welcome to William Steele True Crime. I welcome all my fans from Inmate to Roommate here. Just for everybody that keeps asking me about season 2 of Inmate to Roommate, it became the second most popular reality show in the country. So 11.1 million views on TikTok says it all. I didn't even know what TikTok was. I had a fan tell me, "You're blowing up on TikTok." Okay, what's TikTok? So I'm impressed. I'm very grateful for my fans. And I'm not allowed to say whether there's going to be a season 2 or not. But all I'm going to say is if you want a season 2, contact A&E. I will say this. Stay tuned. I'll never tell. But anyway, so that being said, you guys know on my William Steele True Crime channel and podcast, we try to do really inspirational shows, especially shows of transformed lives, people that have been through the criminal justice system, people that are doing important projects need to be told. And, people that really, if you look at our lives 20, 30 years ago, nobody would believe we're doing this today. So that being said, I have one of the most incredible guests I've ever been blessed to book on this show, and he's a gentleman and a scholar from way back. This guy is a legend in organized crime. He was known as the Hollywood Fixer. There's a book written about him now. He's got a book out called The Accidental Gangster. And with that being said, there's a movie in the works and a TV show, and this and that and on and on. The guy's really got it going on right now. Completely turned his life around, kept all the important secrets. He's telling things he feels comfortable telling and sharing with the world. And I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Welcome, ORI SPADO.
Thank you, William. How are you today?
All right, brother. Thank you so much for being on my show.
My pleasure.
I have tons of fans. I did 18 years for nonviolent crime, crimes. Then I escaped from prison, ended up on America's Most Wanted. So I'm doing this now. I've been out about a year, turned my life around. You have a story that really exceeds mine by light years. But for my fans of Inmate to Roommate and this channel who may not know who you are, give us a little bit about your background first. I know you were connected with the Colombos and you were known as a Hollywood Fixer. But let's start back. I know you're from New York. Give us your background.
Well, I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, Rome, New York. I was born there December 17, 1944. And my mom had some complications with me and didn't bring us home till Christmas Day. And on Christmas Day, my father was there with all his friends from the Union, and they put me under the tree to take a picture. And the tree fell over.
Oh, no.
And that began my life right there. I began there at 18. I joined the Army, ended up at 63 to 66, ended up in Hawaii, and I had a great time, great 3 years. After my release, I went back after a few odd jobs. I ended up with the Prudential Insurance Company, where I became a member of the $1 Million Roundtable, extremely successful. And then I began in the automobile industry for credit life and accident health on the financing and loan. And I was the pioneer in the automotive after sale business in New York. Okay. So when you go into a dealership and they demo the car to you, and then they bring you in to the finance manager, business manager, whatever manager. They got to sort the title nowadays. And you want a payment of $200, and when you walk out of there, it's $400 because they add this, they add that. This is only $2 a month, only $5. You can blame me for that there. My first indictment began in 1979, and they kept coming in after that.
You said your first indictment?
As a result of my first indictment, I lost my insurance license.
Oh,
but in the meantime, I had met Sonny Franzese, Meyer Lansky, Frank Costello, and then I tried Summite because I was out of trust. $385,000, which was a lot of money back then. I tried selling it to Carlo Marcello, almost bought it.
Okay.
However, he was in the insurance business. He was being watched very closely.
Wasn't he
So
the
that didn't work
boss
out.
of the New Orleans mob or something like that?
Huh?
Wasn't he boss of New Orleans mob?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he was the boss of New Orleans. Nice guy, nice guy. I flew in there, met with him at the Colonnade Hotel. It's in my book. Anybody want to read about it? But I had a 50-year relationship with Sonny Franzese, the underboss of the Colombo crime family
No.
in New York, and out here in California. Just actually in 1970, 71, I became a Hollywood fixer. And I handled problems for studios, agents, lawyers, actors, actresses, everybody. Somebody had a problem. They were able to pick up the phone, call me. I meet with them, and I would handle the problem very easily without a gun. And never had a problem. And I don't mention any names. In my book, I do mention one person's name. And I did that for a very specific reason.
Okay.
But other than that,
Now I know you mentioned Sonny Franzese. He was, I think, underboss of Colombo family, right?
right.
Okay. Now he was in prison for quite a long time. His son is Michael Franzese. He was all over the internet with his true crime, and a lot of people have different views on him and what he did or didn't do. So you're saying you were very tight with Sonny. From what I hear, he was a real stand-up type of old-time gangster, and that in your case, if you don't mind, sharing, like what was the threshold line? How did you initially meet somebody in that family, if you can say, and then realize, hey, I'm pretty good at wheeling and dealing and making connections, and sometimes I need some muscle to get things done. How did you when in your life did you cross that line?
Well, let me explain how that. It's all in my book. And I was a distributor with Polyglycol Corporation, which was a paint sealant undercoating a fabric protector for the automobiles.
Gotcha.
And I was down in Florida. I had a condo in Pompano Beach. And the owner of the company was Walter Feisen. We were very close friends. And he asked me to fly into New York. Oh, he kept calling me and telling me somebody's calling him and giving him death threats.
Oh,
I said, Walter, nobody's going to fucking kill you. Don't worry about it. I said, because they're not going to pick up the phone and call you and tell you.
right.
Only idiots do that there. I said, so it's not real. So anyway, he wanted me to go in and close the deal on Victor Potemkin, who was a large Cadillac dealer in New York on 11th and 54th, I believe it was.
I remember that Cadillac dealership in Manhattan. Yep,
You remember it, right?
I sure do.
Yeah. He was a really very distinguished man, Victor Potemkin. And anyhow, I flew in, and then Victor, we closed the deal. Victor took us all to Club 21 for lunch. This is before cell phones. Walter went, called his office, came back white as a ghost, and he says, "Kid, this is serious. I know you're wired," and he always called me kid. "I know you're wired in. You got to get to the bottom of this. Stay a couple extra days." So I did. And I made a few phone calls. And that evening, I ended up meeting in a restaurant, Trattoria Siciliana, on 2nd Avenue with Sonny Franzese. First time I ever met him. He and I sat
What
next.
year? What year are we talking about approximately, so we can get a time frame of this?
We're talking about he wasn't out of prison too long. 78, 79. I think
Okay.
he did on that 50-year bid. How many years did he do the first time?
I don't know. I know he was recently released and passed away. I know you were trying to visit him from one of your other interviews.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. They wouldn't allow me. They said he'll be off in June. He didn't make it.
Oh
A
man.
few more months, he would have been off fucking probation. Will you imagine that? But
Wow.
anyhow, and people can read about that in my book. And it turns out that we got it resolved with a sit down at the Russian Tea Room in New York. Uh, and after that, I remember at the sit down, if you know anything about a sit down, you're supposed to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
And as I was sitting directly across from Sonny. And I didn't think, because it was a legitimate business deal, I didn't think he was understanding it.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I said, let me put this in terms you might understand, son. And I said, let's suppose somebody was moving on your territory in the Bronx, and the fucking coldest ice that you ever saw went right through me. And he said, don't think for 1 second I don't know what's going on. Keep your mouth shut. And I did. And the meeting came out very well. We were very happy. After the meeting, we all walked out on 57th Street. Sonny grabs me by the arm. We walked down to 57th and Broadway. And he said, kid, I like you got a lot of balls. He says, I want you with me from now on, he says. He says, and I want you and your family at my home for Christmas. And that's how we became a 50-year friendship right up until he died.
People like that are not used to people talking direct to them, and I think you went in maybe not knowing all the ground rules of organized crime back then.
Right.
So you were just speaking to him like as a gentleman, straight up what the issue was and how you like if this was happening to you. But he took offense. Yeah, he admired you for approaching it that way.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
Well,
cool.
I'll tell you one thing about Sonny Franzese. He was not a stupid guy.
Right.
Very intelligent guy. A very tough guy, no question about it. And then he started referring, everybody in New York started referring to me as our guy in Hollywood.
How about this now? As a kid, when Michael, his son, who's pretty famous now, some people love him, some people hate him. But did you see him as a kid around the house or around his father at all? Did you have any recollection? Michael Franzese, his son.
The funny thing is, all those years, Michael was around. I was at Michael's car dealership in Hempstead. Michael wasn't there. Sonny kept a little desk in the fucking garage there where people would come to meet him. Me and Sonny used to have breakfast several times a week, right? Because Sonny lived in Roslyn. I lived in Little Neck. And I lived right on Little Neck between the Northern and LIE. You know where that's at?
Yeah.
And on the corner down near when you exited the LIE, there was a shopping center there, strip shopping center. On one end was like a little diner, basically a restaurant, more of a restaurant than a diner. On the other end, a freaking grocery store that wasn't even open. And Sonny would come in and meet with me in the morning. Come in, he'd take his coat off. This is funny. He'd sit down, we'd look at the menu, he'd order. He said, I gotta go to the bathroom, buddy. He'd go in the bathroom and he fucking climb out the fucking window, go down the other end of the shopping center, meet with some guys, come back. In the meantime, the FBI were always following him.
Right, okay.
And, it came out many years later. Sonny evades the FBI. It was in a New York Post about him going out bathroom windows. But he was a sharp guy.
I did see how there was a time in 1971, I think you said, you originally got to Beverly Hills and you dealing with some level with Dino De Laurentiis, famous movie maker.
Dino, yeah.
A lot of other people. So now you're dealing with Sonny, and you end up in you already had been in Beverly Hills. I guess you were going back and forth between New York and Beverly Hills.
Back and forth. I always maintained For 35 years, I maintained a suite at the Warwick Hotel in New York. And then for a brief time, I got an apartment on 58 between 5th and 6th.
Right.
And I lived in Long Island, obviously. And every time I went to New York, Sonny would be staying with me wherever I was.
Right. Did you spend much time in Brooklyn at all? Which is where I'm from. I deal with Manhattan, for all the obvious reasons. But
We were in Brooklyn. Look at a day with Sonny. This is how our day would begin. When I'm at the Warwick, Sonny always stayed with me. I'm an early riser. I'm up before him.
right.
And I got coffee in my room. I'm all right. He comes in, gets his coffee. Hey, buddy, come on, let's talk. And we would go outside the room into the maid's closet in the hallway. And that's where Sonny and we'd have coffee and we bullshit. Because we thought the room was being tapped.
Right.
And then from there, we'd have breakfast. And you'd be in 9, 10 more freaking restaurants throughout the day. Brooklyn, the Bronx, every freaking place. End up late at night in Long Island. And Sonny'd eat at every restaurant, and we'd be having meetings all day long.
During this period, I know was it Greg Scarpa Senior and Junior. They became very notorious. Well, I think the son was called the Grim Reaper. Or was that the father of the Colombos?
The father was a Grim Reaper, yeah.
Were both of them ultimately CIs, like top echelon CIs or something? I remember reading a book. I think the Junior Greg wrote it, and it was about how he could have disrupted 9/11, but the feds didn't take him serious and all this nonsense.
Son, what was the question again? I apologize.
I'm just wondering, like, if you knew the Scarpa Senior and Junior very well at all.
I never. I heard of Greg, and I know through Larry Maz that the one person that Greg had a lot of respect for was Sonny Franzese. So, the other thing about me is out here on the West Coast, my best friend was Jimmy Cacci. And people don't know Jimmy Cacci. Jimmy Cacci was the underboss of Los Angeles. He was the boss of Palm Springs. Yeah.
You all right? You want to take a break?
Yeah.
I went through that.
Something here won't come out.
I went through that before we just got on the air. That's why I put this off for a few minutes. I was joking.
Yeah. So anyway, Jimmy and I were extremely. We were like brothers.
Right.
Oh, Sonny would fucking be pissed. You're with me. Jimmy be pissed. You're with me because you live in California.
They're both Colombo. They're both Colombo, though, right? They're both.
No, Jimmy was with Los Angeles Mafia.
Okay.
Los Angeles family. And through Jimmy was very close friends with Joe Tadaro. They grew up together out of Buffalo. And Joe was the boss of Buffalo.
Right.
So I spent, a lot of time with Joe when I go back to Buffalo with Jimmy.
But it seems like they both throw you business and you help them. As long as interests don't conflict, what's the problem?
Yeah. Well, we never had a problem. Eventually, I brought Jimmy back, introduced him to Sonny, and we were cool.
All right. So tell us about some of your experiences. Oh, let me ask you this. I've interviewed a guest a couple of times, and, he tells everybody he was a Colombo and all this. I don't know if you know Anthony Raimondi.
I had no idea, never heard of him.
When the bullet hits the bone.
Come out on the thing, yeah.
Yeah, when the bullet hits the bone. Now, Mary, my fiance, was a certified fraud examiner, and she's really good about digging into this, the stories and details of the people I'm talking to. And we looked, and she did a genealogy on him that shows he's related to Lucky Luciano, which he's been saying on the air. She found a genealogical connection directly to him, family tree. And then the other thing was on the Colombo, him claiming to be a made man, that there's an FBI report out that has, I think from the 70s, known members of La Casa Nostra, Colombo, and his name's on that list. So a lot of people say he's not, he was, but he's putting his story out there because he's also says he's trying to help people, to change their ways and not.
Is Anthony the one that says that something he killed the Pope?
I don't remember that story.
Yeah.
I don't remember about that. I know he said he killed 300 people in Vietnam, but some special forces, and then he clarified it and said, "Well, we were shooting, rockets into a hillside where they were burrowed in, shooting at us. So approximately 300 people." But it's
Yeah.
like, a lot of guys say stuff. It's hard to verify things, but it's. I think it's good that whatever it is, he's reaching a certain segment of society who like admires the mob and the life and growing up a gang member and becoming a gang member, where guys like you and him are really trying to steer a younger generation to something else. I always say this: the only real wise guys are the guys that steer clear of that or quit. That's the real one.
Well,
They're wise, you know. But I'm grateful for the guys that do come on the shows nowadays because if you were telling your story, or these guys were telling the story 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have a long life expectancy probably. A lot of people couldn't be public about this. So we appreciate you guys coming on.